J.D. Vance. New audio reveals J.D. Vance accusing childless left of trying to brainwash the minds of our children.
This is when he was saying teachers that don't have kids are trying to.
Sir, why you gotta spoil the story?
Because I've already reported on it.
Fuck you, Suris. Fuck. What are we even doing here? What are we even doing here?
Our best.
Anyway, this was sent to me by Anonymous, but apparently you already know all the deets.
I'm sorry. The long and short of it, though, is there is one teacher who J.D. Vance was specifically attacking
she was
with those comments.
The head of a teachers union.
Yes. And she actually did end up speaking about this afterwards as well, noting that this is not just a J.D. Vance thing. This is a common thing that she has dealt with for a decently long time.
Thanks for the hydrate, Steel Jules.
So, like, maybe not necessarily numb to these attacks, but certainly used to these attacks, because they come from more than just J.D. Vance.
Yeah, so here's the thing, though. Like, when it comes to teaching kids and educating children, that's not the same as raising children. And Republicans are often the first people to point this out. They're like, "Oh, we shouldn't be relying on the school system to raise our kids." And
but you never did.
I agree with the sentiment there. I don't necessarily agree with all the values that my kids' teachers have. It's nice when they do happen to line up, because then I have like an extra level of trust for like my kids' teachers or whatever. But like when it comes to like building their character, that's a thing that happens primarily at home. But like educating them, that's a science. That's a learned skill. That is a thing that you can learn how to do whether or not you have kids. You can go to school to learn how to educate people.
Like one of the criticisms that I have for JD here, and it's the same criticism I have for, of all people, classically Abby, because she made a video recently about why she wants to homeschool her kids and only wants to do that. And one of the reasons was leftist brainwashing, of course, right? The same thing that I said for that video is the same thing that I'll say here when it comes to JD Vance. To believe that you can homeschool your kid, as wonderful of a sentiment as it is, wanting to spend more time with your kid, wanting to instill your values in your kid, which you're going to be doing anyway, right? Whether or not they're in school. It is, however, a very arrogant position to take, and I'm willing to stand by that, because it is a position that is built on the idea that you have the expertise necessary to teach your child science, history, mathematics, and that last one, most parents are already not good at, because most of us forget all the maths we learned.
Do you know how to do long division, Suris?
What's up?
Do you know how to do long division?
I used to do long division for fun. So that one I do know. I
do not know that one. So yeah, I can actually speak to this as someone who did used to homeschool my kids. The reason I stopped homeschooling my kids was because it got to a point where, like, so the main reason was my oldest child kind of had us spoiled, and now they're like they've been diagnosed with some neurodivergence that kind of explain why this happened. But they are very self-directed when it comes to learning stuff that they are actually interested in. And so a lot of times we could just like put the workbook in front of them. There's the thing that explains it at the beginning. They would read that, figure it out, understand it, do the exercises, and it was great. So they would just be self-taught. And like with yeah, obviously we'd have to help them sometimes to like understand things that they like didn't quite figure out. Oh, Sean Helfin, I miss Math Blaster. I loved Math Blaster. That was such a fun game. I mean, I remember it being a fun game. If I were to install it and run it now, I'd just be like, what the fuck is this shit? But I loved Math Blaster as a kid. But yeah, no, so they would basically educate themselves. But then my second child did not have that same disposition. And within a couple years of after them starting actual, like, we need to teach you stuff school, it was like, yeah, so we can't do this. We are incapable of doing this. So I'm going to send them to the school system because...
So that they can do it.
Yeah, because because that was like we were probably in the minority in that we were not homeschooling for religious reasons. Like even cause I think I was still religious when we started, but it wasn't for religious reasons that we were homeschooling. It was just like the idea was like a one-on-one education is going to be like, all else being equal, when there's one teacher and one student, the student's going to get a better education than when there's one teacher and 20 students.
Mm-hmm.
But all else is not always equal. And so like we went into it with the mindset of like, as soon as we start struggling with this, as soon as we start feeling like we cannot, like we're having trouble providing a quality education to our kids, they are going to the school system. And it was our second child that did that, because it's like, okay, well, the first one we just slap the book in front of them and they just learn the stuff. The second one doesn't want to do anything that we are telling them to do. Like,
so you need somebody who's professionally trained in getting them to listen to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Like I 100% respect parents who are willing to try to do homeschooling, but there is still that hint of arrogance there as far as I'm concerned, that you have the expertise in all of the fields necessary in order to do that. And
so
there you go.
Going into it, it was never in our minds that we would homeschool all the way through high school. And when I found out that there are people that do that, that just like, that blew my mind, because I'm like, why? Like, no, I don't remember all the stuff that I learned in high school. Do you think I can teach that shit anymore? Of course not. What the fuck? Like, arguably, the stuff that I learned in high school biology class is more useful to me than to anyone else that was in high school biology class. Because, like, I actually use that for my work now. But I still don't remember most of it. Like, most of it was focused on like the nitty gritty molecular machines and shit like that. That actually, like, I still take like the bird's eye view of everything. I don't have to get into like the molecular chemistry aspect of it. But yeah, no, I had never, like, it blew my mind when I found out that there are people that actually homeschool all the way through high school. But
yeah, it's like, and I understand that the common argument is, oh, well, how will your kids socialize? That's usually the first one that's brought up. And I'm the older I get, the more I realize that's not really a great argument, because I went to a private school where I wasn't allowed to socialize. It was a roll of the dice during PE if we were able to speak at all. If it was a competitive sport we weren't allowed to speak, and we weren't allowed to talk during lunch except for the last 5 minutes of lunch.
John 73 John remembers the one thing we all remember from biology class is that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
It is the powerhouse of the cell. And the one thing I remember from math class was, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally.
I don't remember that. I just remember negative b plus or minus squared root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
So you never did PEMDAS for your order of operations?
You mean BEDMAS?
What the fuck is BEDMAS? PEMDAS.
Brackets, exponents, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction.
Yeah, it wasn't said Ravi says Ruffle. Why are you so Ravi is one of my mods and he's actually a math teacher, so he's probably got some words for both of us right now.
So okay, my understanding of the whole PEDMAS thing is that essentially it's shorthand that allows people to be lazy, because everything that you want to be done first should be in brackets.
Well, right. So the reason that we had PEMDAS is because the P was for parentheses instead of brackets. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so like we did BEDMAS where it was brackets, exponents, multiplication or division multiplication. So we put the division first, but division multiplication happen in the order in which they appear. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Ravi says, no, I'm just trying not to fillet a handgun. Ravi, you should at least be happy that your contributions up to this point stuck me in a Sonic onesie while I make fun of J.D. Vance.
Hitchmeister, we know that parentheses and brackets are the same thing.
Right, but it's the different ways that our schooling systems taught us when it comes to math. Just a very, very different method technically the same method, but
Yeah.
with little idiosyncrasy differences. But yeah, that's why I said like
But this is how like all those problems you see on social media is like oh, solve this math problem, and it's like something that looks super simple, but
everybody
like everybody has like
order of operations.
two different answers. No, because a lot of them are written specifically to be ambiguous, and if they actually used brackets properly, that would just take the ambiguousness away. And Fennec also remembers the quadratic equation to the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel. I didn't learn it to the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel, but I did learn it as a song.
I'm trying to remember how I learned the quadratic formula, because I remember struggling with learning it, and then there was a phonetic that I figured out that caused me to remember it, and now it's gone. It's gone now. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, Fennec says, I don't remember what it's for, but I remember it. Yeah, same here. Main reason I remember it, not just because of the song, but also because they made us buy graphing calculators, and I got mad because the graphing calculators were like $150, and we basically didn't use them all year in class, despite them being required. So my mindset was like, okay, if they're going to force us to buy these fancy calculators, I'm going to find a use for them. So I actually cheated on the test by like all of the formulas that we were supposed to have memorized for the test. I put them into the calculator, but I didn't just put them in the calculator. I programmed them in so that they would solve the equations for me. So like you still have to show your work and do the stuff or whatever, but I could at least use the calculator to verify that I got the right answer. But I accidentally taught myself. So through the process of trying to cheat on the test, I accidentally turned it into studying and actually understood the test. So that was actually more useful than if I had just memorized it. So like now I still have it memorized, but I also figured out how to program a fucking calculator. Anyway,
I knew how to type boobs in it.
Yeah.
I learned how to use the parentheses in it to make like what looked like actual tits, and everybody had different ways of making tits in the calculator, and we all fought over which one looked closer to an actual cleavage.
I took computer programming in college, and in our mathematics course that was specific for computer stuff, so you got into like translating numbers between decimal, binary, and hex. I remember being impressed with the professor because like he asked like, oh, somebody shout out a number and I'll translate it into hex for you. And some guys in the class shouted out a number. And I forget what the number is, but I'm sure it's easy enough to figure out. But like the professor just like, he wrote the number that they wrote, and then he just looked at it for a second and he was like, okay, no, I'm not doing that one. And of course, as soon as he said that, everybody in the class set to work in figuring out what that was, and it was the number that when you translate it into hexadecimal is B00B. So he didn't have that number memorized, he just did it in his head, and he was like, nope, not doing it. Sorry, you don't fool me. But of course, in saying that, he then got everybody to like self-assign some homework, be like, why isn't he doing that number? Oh, it's because it's boobs.
Real quick, Rhino, question. Do you have anything up right now on tweets or otherwise for us to talk about the
45067?
For us to talk about the DOJ and Tenet media?
No, I don't have that.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about it?
So this is as of 22 minutes ago.
Yeah, no, I've been looking for stories in the last 22 minutes?
No, there's stuff about it from other earlier points, but CNN just put its thing up about it 22 minutes ago. I think the last one was like 3 hours prior. But so Tim Pool 2 hours ago just had to do an entire post disavowing Tenet Media, which is a media corporation that owns some like stock of his company. Mm-hmm. I don't remember. It's apparently they have not control, but his Culture War podcast is licensed by Tenet Media, so there is some like there's some connection there. There's currently an indictment from the Department of Justice to Tenet Media about them being a fucking Russia plant agency. So, no, there's not full information on this yet, but there is enough information in the water for me to smell something very off.
Tim Pool is trying to distance himself from Russian propaganda, basically.
That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. So, yeah, that's Well, I'll be looking into that to do some reporting on it myself then, I suppose. Jesus.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, anyway, so if you're unfamiliar with what J.D. Vance said, so he said, so many of the leaders of the left, and I hate to be so personal about this, but they're people without kids trying to brainwash the minds of our children. And then he went on to slam American Federation of Teachers boss Randy Weingarten, insisting she doesn't have a single child. If she wants to brainwash and destroy the minds of children, she should have some of her own and leave ours the hell alone. So this gets back into people who are trying to educate children and impart knowledge in them are not the same as the people who are raising children. Those are two separate jobs. The parents still raise the children. And, like, you don't need to have children of your own to understand how to get children to understand concepts. Like, teaching a child is not the same as raising a child. You don't need to have a child in order to know how to teach a child.
Yep, it's like there is expertise required to be able to impart knowledge in a way that sticks with a kid, and it's not necessarily the same skill set as teaching a kid, say, like, good moral values.
A lot of parents don't have that skill set. A lot of parents don't have the skill set to be parents, to be honest.
I mean, most honest parents will tell you, in terms of preparation for having a kid, they have
I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Exactly. Like, most honest parents will let you know that they are winging it. Sometimes it works out really well. And sometimes it doesn't. Also, Novaluxrin, thank you for the hydrate. I am down to only ice in my thermos right now. But
Scott Delahunt says 500 Quatlus says that Vance left his wife to do all the child raising. So while I was doing the research into this, I stumbled across an interview with Vance where he was trying to defend this statement. And one of the things that he said in that interview was, "My wife has 3 kids." Be like,
okay, you might have a friend who's black. You can still be racist.
Yeah, but I'm just like, no, but
your niece is homosexual. You obviously can't be homophobic.
Sir, it's the whole, my wife has 3 kids. He doesn't even think of them as his own kids.
That reminds me of the fucking shit. Oh my god, this one pissed me off. So, when J.D. Vance was getting his story, right, the story he was so proud of for how he got the call to become vice president for Trump.
Yeah.
And how in the story he was in a hotel getting the call and having to shoo his son away, telling his son, "No, I don't want to hear about fucking Pikachu." Because his son was trying to show him some Pokemon stuff that he had recently caught that he thought was so cool. And he was basically shoving his son away for Trump, a person who he had previously said he didn't like and would never vote for and would never support.
So, to be fair, if you take away the whole, he actually said that Trump was a piece of shit that he would never vote for and would never support. If you take away that aspect of it, there are instances where I would be like, hey, I am working right now. So, like, yes, you can tell me all about what you built in Tears of the Kingdom, but like, not right this second.
Yeah, that's not the way. Like, that's not the way he worded it at all.
Okay,
though.
Fine, but yeah. So, but I when I saw him say that, like, I immediately showed my partner that and was like, so we're a blended family. I have 3 kids. She has 2 kids. When we talk to people, I have 5 kids. That's just how it is now. I have 5 kids. And when she talks to people, she has 5 kids. Because they are our kids. And this is like arguably the most socially acceptable scenario for me to say that, yeah, I have 3 kids and she has 2 kids. Because, like, that's just logistically how it happened originally. But, like, they're still my kids. And, like, they're young enough that, like, we were just doing the math on this. Like, one of them, I have known them for literally half their life. I've been their father figure. Yep. I mean, they still have a father, but, like...
But you're the one that's there with them all the time.
I'm the one... Well, no, it's a 50-50 split, but, like... So, the other... yesterday was the first day of school, and, yeah, they were not terribly comfortable with their dad. So,
Jesus.
Just as an observation. And, yeah, like, they're kind of hostile towards me, but that's, like, an understandable, like... Yeah, dad is dad, and I'm the guy that kind of came along later, and they don't quite know what to think of me, and I could see him shit-talking me while they're with him.
Yep. Dorita Dave says, bonus dad. You're the bonus dad.
So when we went to Mexico, this almost caused some problems at the border, but it was still, like, a heartwarming moment for me. Not the one who is, like, not the younger of the two who is kind of doesn't know what to think about me, and, like, I know that they like me, but they don't feel comfortable expressing that to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it's kind of a weird dynamic. But the other one who's like, you know, I went away to BajaCon for the weekend. When I got home, he came downstairs, saw me, he was like, Papa! And jumped on me, a big hug or whatever. So I was like, okay, yeah, no, this one likes me. But when we went to Mexico, as we were crossing the land, I live right across the river from Buffalo, New York. So we flew out of Buffalo. We didn't fly out of Toronto. So as we crossed the land border between Canada and the U.S., border guard is like going through all our paperwork and everything. And so it's like, there's 7 of us. And like, so her kids don't even have the same last name as her. They have their father's last name. And
it seemed like a suspicious situation.
Yeah, so it's like one of those things where, like, we have like a letter from him giving us permission to take the kids. I've got my wife's death certificate to show that I have permission to take my kids. And like all this, like, so there, like, there's all this stuff going on or whatever as we're crossing the border. And as the border guard's like looking over our paper, he's in the back. He just looks out at the border guard and is like, I have 2 dads. I'm just like,
that sounds a whole lot like you're gay.
That's so amazing, and I love it, and that's great. I'm so happy that you think of me in that way. But at the border guard just kind of looked at us funny and like let us go or whatever. It wasn't a big deal, but like it could have become a big deal. He was like, "Oh, you have 2 dads. I only see one in the car with you right now. Where's the second one?"
Yeah.
But yeah, it was wholesome.
Heartwarming, but bad timing.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, but that's my point though, is that J.D. Vance doesn't consider his kids to be his kids. They are his wife's kids. Whereas like I'm over here, like, I have 5 kids, and sometimes they think of me as their dad, sometimes they don't. And that's okay.
It works out either way.
Yeah. Anyway.
Skeletal says listening to this while studying for a driver's test is something else.
The stop sign means you stop.
Generally speaking, yes.
The yield sign, you don't have to come to a complete stop, but if you come out in the intersection and somebody smashes into you, that's your fault.
The rule with the stop sign is very simple. It says stop, but that is a suggestion. And that suggestion can be ignored if you simply run over the sign first.
That was actually the first time I ever got pulled over by a cop, was when I did a rolling stop at a stop sign. And like, I was still a teenager, and he was like giving me the 3rd degree about how dangerous that is, and how that's a ticket that like in Ontario that carries like the maximum number of points you can, like, demerit points you can get on your license, where like if you get one more point you'll lose your license. So that was fun. But also, so you back to my car. I don't mean to always talk about my new car that I love, but so electric car. It's got 1 pedal driving, and it's very good at doing what's called the chauffeur stop, which is like it can come to a complete stop without the little jerk that indicates like that you've come to a complete stop. And also, I thought at first, like when I test drove it, I'm like, oh, I did, like this was the first electric car I've ever driven. I'm just like, it doesn't really have like that whole like you push on the like. I'd heard that like as soon as you touch the pedal, you just like go, and it's like torque immediately. And everybody goes nuts for that, but apparently everybody just floors it at the stoplight when they go or whatever, because like if you just drive it normally, it just feels normally, but it can go. But I didn't know that it could go like that until I was already owning it, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna try flooring it. It's like, yeah, I probably could beat the guy in the Mustang, but whatever. Anyway, that's pretty much all I wanted to say about J.D. Vance.
I've got far more things I want to say about him, but not right now.
So much we can say about J.D. Vance, but we do have to eventually end the stream.
Hey, just wanted to give a quick thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who help keep me afloat and help keep this channel going. YouTube and Twitch are wonderful platforms, but at the end of the day, stability is not one of their strong suits. If you want to support my channel, then obviously Patreon is one of the best ways of doing that. Link is in the description. But I do want to personally thank everybody who has contributed to the channel. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Autumn and Angel, Nixie Chan, Mark Anthony, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. And everyone else who supports my channel and lets me do what I do full time. This is a dream job of mine that I never believed that I would be able to take full time, and with your help, I've been able to do it. So thank you so very much for that. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you all enjoy, and I hope you all are having a wonderful time. I will see you all in the next one, hopefully.